Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Harris and I'm an investment associate and CFA charter holder, and in today's video I'm going to go through whether it's worth studying the CFA. So I completed the charter earlier this year after 3 years of study, and now that I have it, it is pretty nice, but there are some pros and cons to consider, so let's step through them. So I'll split the video into three: the good, the bad and the truth, so hang around until the end to get my honest view. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with the good things, and there's plenty of them, but I'll split them into broadly three categories. So number one is skills, number two is prestige, and number three is opportunities. So let's start with skills. So the CFA Charter helps you develop both hard and soft skills. So let's start with hard. So the CFA Charter is a comprehensive study of finance, and if you do it properly, it will increase your knowledge at a rate that's probably difficult to achieve in any other way. Now granted, it is more theoretical in nature and there are certain practical skills that you can only learn on the job, but ultimately studying the CFA Charter over a 3 to 5 year period will increase your knowledge infinitely, which increases your confidence and ensures you can speak the language. Essentially, you can go into conversations, whether they be at work or with peers or interviews, etc., with a level of confidence and understanding about finance that can help you go from strength to strength. So ultimately, you should study the CFA Charter to absorb the knowledge and then apply it in your job and ultimately make more informed career decisions. It isn't about the prestige, although that is a byproduct and we can touch on that later in the video, but primarily the hard skills that you will develop from studying the CFA Charter are essentially unparalleled. So the hard skills are all well and good, but actually the soft skills that you develop are equally valuable. And what I mean by that is the intangible soft characteristics that you develop through studying the CFA Charter. So for example, it massively increases your discipline because you've got to study alongside work. It increases your organization and ability to prioritize because you've still got to work. You've got your other life commitments as well, but you're studying alongside it. So you become better at time management, and it significantly increases your ability to learn. So you'll improve your study strategies and your ability to understand new concepts. So that skills out of the way. I did touch on it, and naturally studying the CFA Charter and completing the CFA Charter does bring with it a level of prestige. Now, I don't think this should be a primary reason you study the CFA Charter, but it is an inevitable byproduct. Those letters will precede you. They do bring a degree of respect because people know that you're hardworking and that you probably have a very reasonable understanding of finance. It helps your CV stand out. It will lead to additional inbounds from recruiters. And ultimately, again, it feeds into increasing your confidence. And you'll probably see that this is an underlying theme throughout. The CFA brings a level of confidence with it, which is really, really beneficial for your life. And the final thing on my list of good things is the opportunities it brings. So again, I touched on it just now, but having the CFA firstly opens the door to certain job roles that require CFA. So for example, investment research. Also, you get more inbounds from recruiters and you can start considering other job opportunities. It also often increases your pay in the long run. Now, that's not directly related to the letters itself, but it's more the knowledge and then the application of that knowledge which drives it. So generally, if you have the CFA, you're probably going to be better at your job. That's not guaranteed, but it tends to be a byproduct. And finally, quite an important thing here is networking. So when you complete the charter, you join an exclusive club of like-minded individuals. You can meet up with these people regularly, whether it be socially or at conferences or mentoring events, etc., etc. So you meet people who are like-minded, you can build your network, and in the long run, that's going to be beneficial to you as well. So this is a big perk of having the CFA. So those are the three main things that I think are a benefit of having the CFA Charter, and that is the skills, the prestige, and the opportunities. And look, these vary from person to person, but this is my broad opinion on it. So with that extensive list of good things, you'd think that everything is rosy. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. There's definitely some downsides that you should consider, so let's go through them. So broadly, I think there are three downsides to consider, and that is the sacrifice involved, the relevance of the material, and the cost. So let's step through them. The first one is not a secret. There's a huge amount of sacrifice associated with getting the CFA Charter. So assuming you do roughly 300 to 350 hours per level, and sometimes it can be more than that, that's roughly 1,000 hours across 3 levels that you could devote to other things. So it will inevitably require sacrifice of leisure time, social time, sports, time with family, whatever it might be. And if you have other ambitions in life, those will probably fall by the wayside as well. So for example, I always had aspirations to do this YouTube thing. However, during my studies, it was just impossible. I had to decide what to prioritize, and at that time, it took up all my spare time. So this had to go on the back burner. So you've got to ask yourself, what is your long-term objective? Because this is going to take up 3 to 4 years of your life, probably. It's going to take 1,000 hours plus. Could you spend that on more fruitful endeavors? If you have other ambitions long-term that don't lie in the domain of finance, maybe you want to consider something else. it's just food for thought. Okay, let's touch on relevance. Now, although the breadth of the curriculum can be a plus in terms of your comprehensive understanding of finance, whilst you're studying it, sometimes it's painful because you don't necessarily apply everything you learn, especially if you don't work in asset management. That's a big thing to consider. I work in banking, and honestly, a large chunk of the curriculum was not relevant to my day-to-day, particularly at level 3. And I found that level to be the toughest because of the portfolio management focus, which is not related to my day-to-day. So bear that in mind. Where do you work and what are your long-term ambitions? Because when you're going deep into portfolio management theory, how derivatives work, etc., but you're not actually doing that day to day, it can be difficult to continue to motivate yourself. And if you don't go deep, you're probably going to forget it afterwards as well. There'll be moments late at night when you're studying portfolio management theory and you're thinking, why the hell am I doing this? So bear that in mind, okay? It is a big consideration. Finally, let's touch on cost. Studying the CFA is bloody expensive. So each exam costs between $1,000 and $2,000. So level 1 is $1,000, level 2 is $1,500, and then level 3 is $2,000. You get a $500 discount if you're an early bird. So if you sign up early, it's a bit cheaper, but ultimately it is expensive to do each of the levels. And then overlay the cost of the prep providers and the whole thing can cost $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, which is a lot of money. Some prep providers are cheaper than others, and I would recommend checking out my first video, which I'll link either on the screen or in the description for the ones I recommend that you use. But generally speaking, it is worth considering how much it's going to cost. Now, if you're self-funding, obviously it's a sizable commitment. Even if your employer pays, which is very fortunate if they do, there are some stipulations that come with that. There's usually a clawback provision, meaning that you can't leave for a certain period of time after you've sat the exams, which can tie you in, or if you do leave, you're going to have to pay that back. So either way, the financial commitment here is pretty big, so consider that when making your decision. Okay, with all of that in mind, what's my view? Was it worth it? For me, the answer is a firm yes, and I'll explain why. So the question here is, why are you studying the CFA Charter? And I've made other material on this, and I always emphasize the motivation as being key. For many people, they go into studying it because of the promise of the 3 letters. And firstly, that's rarely enough of a reason to keep you motivated to go through the full 3 years, but also the novelty of that wears off quickly. Afterwards, once you get the 3 letters, it feels great for a week, a month, whatever. But after that, it's all about what you actually took from the qualification that matters. If you're not interested in finance and if you don't have long-term ambitions to excel in this space, I don't think the CFA is right for you. But for me, I really wanted to push on in finance. So I really diligently studied it. I actually enjoyed the material and it really helped me up my knowledge, but also increase my confidence. That improved my performance at work, and generally speaking, I feel like it served me well for my long-term ambitions. Also, I touched on this earlier in the video in terms of soft skills that it developed. It massively increased my discipline. I can learn much more quickly now because of the techniques that I developed while studying the CFA Charter, and generally speaking, I think it's a huge net positive for who I am as a person. Now, it did come with big sacrifice. Over the 3 years, I had to give up a lot of leisure time and social time. I always had the dream of doing this YouTube channel, but unfortunately I had to fall by the wayside at that time because I just didn't have any more bandwidth to offer. But now that it's done, I've been able to pivot and focus my attention on this. So you don't have to give up all your dreams, but you have to consider that you will have to give up circa 3 years of your life. That's time you won't get back. With your family, with your friends, socially, and if you have other objectives in life, they'll also have to wait. So you have to ask yourself, which is more important? The CFA will have to take priority if you choose to do it. For me, it did take priority and I don't regret that, but others might. So worth considering that. And a final point is, the earlier in your career you do it, the easier it is. Naturally, as you become more senior, the responsibilities pick up both at work, but also at home. You probably have a family, so on and so forth. It's much harder to put aside time to study. So fortunately for me, I was able to do it relatively early in my career, and that made my life easier. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. And overall, that's my view. I think the CFA is worth it. There are pros and cons. You should consider them. If you like the video, hit like and subscribe and leave a comment if you'd like to see anything else related to this. Thank you and see you in the next video.